Hi friends, welcome to another new lecture of Era of Zoology. In this lecture, I am going to teach you reproductive isolation. And before starting this lecture, if you are new to this channel, then subscribe this channel and press on the bell icon. So, let's start. In this lecture, we are going to talk about what is reproductive isolation, the types of reproductive isolation, and basically the mechanism of each type of reproductive isolation. So let's start with the definition part. So in sexually reproducing organism, species are termed as Mendelian population, between which gene exchange is prevented by an isolating mechanism. This is called reproductive isolation. So in simple word, in sexually reproducing organisms, species are termed or defined as Mendelian population, between which gene exchange is prevented by an isolating mechanism. This is called reproductive isolation, and this isolating mechanism, this term coined by Dobzhansky in 1937. So this is actually the definition part. Now friend, we will talk about the types and the mechanism of reproductive isolation. So friend, basically the reproductive isolation divided into two types. The first type is actually prezygotic isolation. The second type is actually postzygotic isolation. Now maybe you have questioned that what is actually prezygotic isolation as well as what is postzygotic isolation. Let's clear this concept. Basically, prezygotic isolation is the mechanism that prevents the interspecific process like formation of zygote or occurrence of fertilization. So basically prezygotic isolation is mechanism that actually prevent the interspecific process to form the zygote or occurrence of fertilization. Okay, and basically let's talk about the post-zygotic isolation. So in this case, fertilization will take place, hybrid zygote will form, but these are inviable or these are give rise to sterile hybrid. Okay, so this is actually post-zygotic isolation. So basically the prezygotic isolation are of four types. So basically the prezygotic isolation are of four types, and these types are actually habitat isolation, seasonal isolation, ethological isolation, as well as mechanical isolation. These are all included in prezygotic isolation. And in case of post-zygotic isolation are of six types. Basically gametic mortality, zygotic mortality, hybrid inviability, segregational hybrid sterility, developmental hybrid sterility, and F2 breakdown. These are actually included in post-zygotic isolation. Okay, so now we will talk about habitat isolation, which is included in prezygotic isolation. So friend, so in case of habitat isolation, you can see in this schematic diagram that this is actually population of species 1, this is actually the population of species 2. They are actually very closely related species. Okay, but in this same geographical area, they are living in the same geographical area, but they are actually occupying different habitat. They are actually occupying different habitat in the same geographical area, because due to their living condition they are occupying different habitat in this same geographical area, so that they will not mate with each other. Maybe they are actually used to living in the same geographical area, and they are actually occupying different habitat in that same geographical area. They will not mate with each other, so that in this type of habitat isolation no hybrid will form of this closely related species. However, if someone take this species in laboratory, they can form hybrid population, but in case of habitat isolation in same geographical area no hybrid will form. This is actually habitat isolation. So in this case, species 1 population and species 2 population, they are actually isolating from each other in respect of habitat, because they are actually choosing this habitat on the basis of some factors, on the basis of some conditions. Okay friend, so friend, now we will talk about the seasonal isolation. So what is actually the seasonal isolation? So basically in this schematic diagram you can see that this is actually a same ecological area, and basically in the same ecological area, this is group 1 species, this is group 2 species. They are actually living in the same ecological area. But group 1 species and group 2 species, they are actually sexually maturing at different time of year or under different condition, so that they are not going to interbreed with each other. This type of cases actually commonly seen in aquatic animal. Why? Because the temperature of water is actually more stable than the temperature of air. So that, and also one more factor that actually very important, that is the development of embryo also harmonized at a particular temperature, so that these factors are actually permit the development of embryo or the breeding season. So that you can see in this schematic diagram, due to the group 1 and group 2, they are actually sexually maturing at different time of year or under different conditions. They are not going to meet with each other, being they are actually living in the same ecological area. This is actually the seasonal isolation. So friend, now we are going to discuss about the ethological isolation. Basically, what is actually ethology? Ethology is actually behavior, and ethological refers to the behavior pattern. So basically, ethological isolation is a barrier that actually prevent mating due to the difference in behavior, and it based on the production and reception of stimuli by both sexes. And basically, you know that male has coercive behavior and female has actually receptive behavior, right friend? So basically, coercive behavior is actually the exchange of stimuli between male and female continuously until they reach to the physiological readiness for the copulation. And basically this type of ethological isolation, this type of behavior actually seen in bird and insect. They actually perform a ritual dance for the copulation or for breeding. Okay friends, so this is actually ethological isolation. So friend, now we will discuss about the mechanical isolation. So basically, the mechanical isolation provided due to the difference in structure of flower of flowering plant, and also in structure of genital organ of animals. And basically, the mechanical isolation will prevent the cross pollination in case of flowering plant and also the copulation in case of animal. So this is what actually the mechanical isolation, friend. And basically the mechanical isolation actually provide a great isolating mechanism in case of higher plant as well as in case of flowering plant, where those plants are actually specialized, those plants who are actually flowering plant and specialized for insect pollination. This is what actually mechanical isolation. So friend, now we will discuss about the gametic mortality of post-zygotic isolation. So basically, what is actually the gametic mortality? So we all know that sperm can tolerate only a narrow range of physical condition, right? And within this favorable condition, sperm can meet with the ovum and zygote can form, right? So this is actually this scenario is actually in favorable condition. But suppose think about unfavorable condition. Suppose without getting this favorable condition, any of sperm can survive within the unfavorable condition. In this case, two kind of scenario we can get two kind of scenario. So basically, in the unfavorable condition, if any kind of sperm can survive, two members of the species will copulate with each other, and in that case the sperm will fuse with the ovum, and in that case two kind of scenario we will get. The first scenario, that the egg will not fertilize, and the second scenario, that is actually the mating process would not lead to viable offspring. So this is actually in case of unfavorable condition. If any sperm can survive in the unfavorable condition, then two member of species will mate with each other, and in that case two kind of scenario we will get. So this is actually the gametic mortality, that is actually the transfer of sperm will take place, but the egg either will not fertilize, or if the egg will fertilize, then we will get viable offspring. This is actually the gametic mortality. So friend, now we will discuss about the zygotic mortality. So basically what is actually the zygotic mortality? In simple word, actually the development of fertilized hybrid egg are actually often irregular, and it can cease at any stage between fertilization or adult stage. So basically this is the scenario of zygotic mortality. And basically, what are actually the reason behind zygotic mortality? The reasons are actually cytological effect, genetical effect, molecular effect, and also biochemical effect and physiological effect. These are actually the side effect behind the zygotic mortality. And also sometimes the side effect of drugs are also responsible for zygotic mortality. Okay, friend. So this is actually the zygotic mortality. So friend, now we will discuss about the hybrid inviability, which is actually included in post-zygotic isolation. So basically what is actually hybrid inviability? Basically many naturally occurring animals have somatic hybrid vigor and fertility, but they leave no offspring. What is the reason behind it? So basically the reason is less well adjusted to the available ecological niches than parental population or parental species. Okay. The second reason is species hybrid are less successful in courtship. And the third reason behind this hybrid inviability is actually ecological and ecological inferiority. So these reasons actually reduce the chance of living the offspring. So this is actually hybrid inviability. So basically next we will talk about our next part. So friend, now we will discuss about the developmental hybrid sterility. Okay, so what is actually the developmental hybrid sterility? Basically, sometimes the post-zygotic isolation involved in the production of vigorous but sterile species hybrid. Okay, and this sterile species hybrid involve the abnormal development of gonad as well as the abnormal gamete formation as well as the abnormal meiosis. So this is the scenario of developmental hybrid sterility. Now maybe you have questioned that what is the reason behind the abnormal development of gonad as well as the abnormal gamete formation as well as the abnormal meiosis from the sterile species hybrid, right? So the reason behind this actually the poor growth and the low rate of meiosis at seminiferous tubule as well as meiosis of spermatocyte. So this is the reason behind which the sterile species hybrid involve the abnormal development of gonad as well as the abnormal gamete formation and abnormal meiosis. Okay friends, so this is actually the scenario of developmental hybrid sterility. Okay friend. So friend, now we are going to discuss about the segregational hybrid sterility. So basically maybe you have questioned that what is actually the segregational hybrid sterility and what are the reasons behind it. Actually, segregational hybrid sterility occur when abnormal segregation at meiosis of whole set of chromosome or block of gene contained in chromosomal segment occur. So this is actually what segregational hybrid sterility, and basically the reason behind segregational hybrid sterility is genetically controlled spindle abnormality. This is the first reason. The second reason is actually asynapsis, and the third reason is actually desynapsis. So basically the first reason is genetically controlled spindle abnormality. The second reason is asynapsis, and the third reason is actually desynapsis. Okay, so this is actually the segregational hybrid sterility. Now friend, we will talk about F2 breakdown. So friend, now we will discuss about F2 breakdown. So what is actually F2 breakdown or hybrid breakdown? It is actually in some animal or plant there are some hybrid, and these hybrid are actually either highly or at least partly fertile, and these fertile are actually give rise to weak, abnormal or sterile progeny in F2 generation. This scenario is called as F2 breakdown or hybrid breakdown. Okay, so this is actually very easy. In some animal or plant, there are some hybrid, and these hybrid are either highly or at least partly fertile, and they give rise to weak, abnormal, and sterile progeny in the F2 generation. This is called F2 breakdown. Okay, friend. So thank you so much for watching this lecture till this end, the reproductive isolation. I hope now this concept is clear to all of you. Subscribe this channel and like this lecture, and for more information check our description where you will get more information regarding our institute for coaching purpose. Thank you so much.